Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Got a big one for you today. I was thinking this last week, I need to do a walk down memory lane with some of the X-Alps pilots who have done it many times. These memories fade for the fans and for the athlete and their teams, and wanted to sit down with some of these folks and take us back through the races, kind of their best and worst moments, stuff that probably isn't on live tracking that many of you don't know about, and me. So the first I sat down with is the Eagle, Chrigel Maurer. Not much needs to be said in the intro about Chrigel. He has won 7. He's never not won. His first was in 2009. He is preparing right now for his 8th. And he is always the man to beat. So please enjoy this wonderful and make you smile walk down memory lane with Chrigel Maurer and his 7 X-Alps campaigns. Chrigel, good to see you, and welcome back to the show. I had this idea for a show with the X-Alps coming up. You're 8th, you've won 7, and my wife said last night, "Do you think someone could beat him?" And I said, "No, I don't think so yet." But I thought it'd be really fun to kind of take a walk down memory lane with you. These things fade as we go by. It made me think about my first in 2015, but I thought we could go back with you and revisit, maybe a high point and a low point from each of your races. And if you could set it up for us a little bit, because even the fans have probably lost some of the memories about what the route was back in 2009 and what the weather was like in general. Of course, all the races have, but I know, for example, in 2011, the weather was pretty tough, and Toma walked a ton and did pretty well. But set it up for us a little bit. Hi again. It's good to see you. And let's take a walk down memory lane with you with your X-Alps as you head into your 8th.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great idea. Thinking back, it's always nice because it's already a long time when I started the adventures. In 2009, we was really new in this adventure sport. For me, the team sport was new, and then we started the X-Alps for the first time. I remember it was not sure that we can even do 1 or 2 days because it was so big, and I was so unsure how I can walk. I was sure that I can fly well, but to fly well, it needs a good strategy to be on the right place. So it starts really hard, and I really made a big mistake at the first day. I lost my mobile phone, and all the live tracking was connected with the mobile phone. So there was no live tracking on my part, and my support, Thomas, he was not know exactly where I am. And finally, we was really lucky that someone found my phone. He called the number, he was on the top of the list, and this was Thomas. So he got an information about my phone, and then he was driving back to the phone, and he catched, and everything was good. When I was back with Thomas, I was sending all the live tracking data, so even I do not needed the backup. So it was very lucky, but it showing us how an adventure works, how it's a difference between a competition and an adventure. And I think it was the best thing or the best mistake what can happen to show me this. And it was the first day on 2009 X-Alps.
Yeah, that could be tough. I lost my phone on the second day of the 2017 race, and it was a nightmare for about 30 minutes, just wandering around in the bushes, telling my team, "Please just call my phone, call it over and over again."
I think finally it was good to continue and to make day by day, and we had a good strategy already to make the day report and to learn from our mistakes. And finally, this gave us always new ideas how we can manage ourselves.
And what were you flying wing wise and harness wise then? Because we heard that you were really the first one that really pushed the lightweight before 2009, people were carrying really heavy kit, and you showed up. I think I have this right. You showed up with quite light gear. I'd love to know how light was it in compared to now, and what were you flying?
That's right. In 2003, Kasper Henny was the winner, and he carried 16 kilo. And then some manufacturers start to build light gliders when they use the light cloth, but they not have a light construction. So the gliders come down from 6 kilo to 4.5, maybe. And then in 2008, I was selected, and I was test pilot with Advance, so I was able to push the construction in lightweight. And we built a new prototype, which was 3.5 kilo, which was very light for this time. And finally, the construction was light, and also the cloth. And then in 2011, there was not a big advantage. 2013, there was the new rule to have certified gliders, certified harnesses, and it makes the equipment a bit heavier again. And then with 2015, with the two-liner, that was quite heavy for this time, and the three-liner was down to 3 kilo already. So in total, it means in 2009, I was with 8 kilo quite light. Compared to the others, they had 9.5 to 10 or even more. And in 2015, there was already less than 8 kilo with the certified gliders. And my lightest harness was 2013. There was a special one which was certified but really light, not so much comfort, but it was working just for the adventure. The glider was light, and I guess that we can come to this weight in these years. There was several manufacturers that built very light gliders. Now they have also light harnesses, rescues, and a good back protection system, which makes the equipment more or less 6 kilo. The minimum equipment means the fly equipment. Also, the helmet is 400 gram already. The backpack is 400 gram, but 6 kilo, it's quite light.
Yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, it ended in Monaco then, but did it start in the Dockstein in 2009, or were you back at the Mozartplatz?
In 2009, there was the first time they started the Mozartplatz in Salzburg city. Then we went up to Geisberg, and then direction south to Watzmann, this the high mountains in Berchtesgaden. And from there, it crosses all the Alps to the south, so to Kronplatz. And this crossing was quite hard because it was still in the snow, so the border was in the snow, and I spent a half a day walking in the snow. So it was a hard entry in a competition, and it was the last edition which was without the night break. So we had to walk, or we was able to walk all the night without sleeping. And for me, it was sure that I have to sleep. At minimum, we said 4 hours. Most of the days it was more than 4 hours, but I slept every night. Compared to the others, there was some athletes that was not sleeping so much, and they was really on the edge after some days.
Was that rule change a suggestion that came from you and others after that race, or was that something they were contemplating anyway? That the go on, they didn't have the night pass back then; you could just go for.
Yeah, there was. In analyzing, the organization saw that we was the leader after 9 days with the most of rest time, and then they realized that it's more fast when the athletes can rest or the team can rest. And to have more safety, they bring this rule to stop, to sleep. And in 2013, there was even more rest time, up to 5.5 hours. And 2015, there was the first edition with the night pass.
Yeah, I got 2 night passes on that one with the prologue. That's right. And I learned that isn't necessarily a good thing.
It's a hard decision to choose it and then to make the best with and not to push too much to be damaged.
Yeah. We pushed too much in a rainstorm the first night pass. It slaughtered me. It was a terrible decision. But okay, so you lost your phone. What about a really good memory from 2009? Maybe that actually is a good memory. But do you have something that when you think back on 2009, your first win, that was still something that makes you smile?
Yeah, um, for sure. There was good to have this shortcut direction Zermatt. We was directly on the Monte Rosa south face or east face. We climbed at 2,000 meter up past the glacier, and on the glacier we made this start with the rope, this towing start, and the helicopter was
Oh
with us
yeah.
filming this start. And for us it was always a good example to speak about teamwork. So I have a mountain guide
Mm.
bring me up to the glacier, pull me in the air because the glacier was flat, and then I fly direction Matterhorn and continue. And he had to walk down to the car, driving all the way above the passes. And this shows really how in this race the teamwork is working. And when we had this experience, we always think about how we can make this, or how we can create a situation like this to help each other with different skills. And then it helps us many times in different races.
I think you said this on a previous show, maybe, or maybe I asked Thomas this actually when we were working together last year. But how did you and Thomas connect for that first
I
one?
met him just 7 months before the race because I was looking for a mountain guide. He was in study, so he was not so free to train and to make good preparation. But finally, he was enough motivated to work with me to see what's working in the practice with the athlete from his know-how from the study. And finally, that was the best what can happen, because we start to work quite constantly and seriously. And then he learned how to support. And finally he was the only one supporter I bring, and he was driving the car all day, and he was really on the edge like me too. But we was managing. And for sure it was no social media work, it was not so much fans on the road. So it was so many things less to do in these races compared to now. But we was really on the border. And it was a good experience, and we was really learning from each other what we need, how we work, and for sure that we not communicate good enough. Because communication is always difficult when you are tired, when you're stressed. And since then I start to learn how to communicate better in difficult situations, and he too.
I was going to ask you, somebody the other day asked me, "Hey, does Kriegel ever get angry? Does he ever get upset? You see pilots in World Cups and that kind of thing get really pissed or kick their helmet. Do you get angry when you make a bad mistake, or is it just part? You let it roll off you pretty
No,
easy?
I'm really focused on performance. My luck is that I do competition since a long time. So I start 2000, and I had really hard time when I was in the PWC in 2002 2003. I was really pissed off, and I made a lot of noise outside. But finally, there was a time of learning and to understand that paragliding sport is working differently, and that I have to accept things. And when I start the adventure races, the hike and fly competitions in 2009, I was already old, and I was managing me myself quite good. So that helps me to look seriously from outside.
You mentioned before we started talking that you're right now. Thomas is going to support you again. He'll be, I guess, your main supporter, but you're trying to find your new team. You've changed your team quite a bit over the years with X-Pyr and Dolomiti, and I often see new people that I haven't seen before. Do you think that's important to or is that more important than just keeping the same core team? Because I imagine you could have the same, people would love supporting you and would do it over and over again, kind of like Thomas has done. You guys had a big break there for a couple races, but what's your philosophy on putting together your team?
Yeah, I really tried to keep the supporters, but in an example of Thomas, he started working with his company. He was a father in 2015 of two kids, and the time is always the problem. So spending so much time for training and preparation, and then for the race, it's not always easy. So and then there was sometimes it was, or till 2014 or 15 we worked together, and then 2016 he was complaining because of the time. Then I was start working with Tobias Dimmler, and then he grew up and he started to work differently. He was in India and traveling a lot, so I looking out for a new team, and it was changing like this. But for my philosophy, it's to have people who are motivated to work with me, to learn something in this way of adventure and paragliding sport. And I really like to share them all my experience. And they come with me to the competitions and try to do the best and having fun. And 2020, Thomas say, okay, my family, it's working well, the company is increasing, so we can start training for the next X-Alps again. And so 2021 he was with me again, and for the next edition we're looking forward, and we need more people because there are so much things to do, and with the team of 3 or maybe 4 with the other car, it looks for us really working well. So we continue like this, and now we look for people which is motivated and spending time, because the preparation and the 3-4 weeks competition, it's quite a lot for just for holiday.
Yeah, it's a huge commitment. Okay, 2011. I know the weather was bad, but maybe you can tell us briefly what the route was. I was watching you guys from Scotland in this one. I was sailing up in Scotland that summer, and that's when I got really interested in it. So I remember this race quite well. But Hansa and Toma, it seemed like it was a lot of ground game in 2011.
Yeah, because the route starts heading to the east first to Dachstein, and then back to the west, and it was a hard entry because there was a strong south wind. It was fun, and I remember there was Ogisawa with the boomerang boom 8. It was really performing well, and in the fern he had really big collapses, but he was managing well. He was first in the first day, and then the second day we spent all day on the road together with Paul Guschelbauer. I walked 95k, and on day 3 we was completely destroyed, and then we had to cross the main ridge direction, Trezinnen in Dolomiti, and then on day 4 I had to walk again all day. It was horrible weather, and then day 5 I spent in a small flight, but then I made a big mistake, and from outside it looks like a big magic move, but for me it was hard to realize that I made a mistake. I flew after Meran, direction Martel, instead of the Stelvio Pass, and I wanted to cross the Stelvio Pass, Bormio, and then direction Zermatt, and instead I was one valley too early in the south, and Thomas told me when I was landed that I am staying in the wrong valley. I had to walk back and say, no, it's not possible, I want to continue here. So there was a big discussion, and I was really frustrated because I realized that I was wrong. I was navigating by paper maps, so there was no GPS, and like this we made mistakes, and finally was really frustrated. But then after a while we found a new solution. We found this way to the Kasati hut. This was a small hut on 3,000 meter, the weather was horrible. It was snowing and foggy, and we was able to catch the hut before the night, because there was the new rest time at 11. And then we was really lucky that the next day was flyable from the hut from 3000. And that was really on a good position, because the teams in the south was in stable air. The teams at Stelvio Pass in the north was in Föhn, in strong north wind. And that was really in the middle, and I was able to fly more than 200k in this day. And I flew all the way to Zermatt. But then on the way, I hit the airspace in Ticino by 1 meter. Finally, it was 1 meter with 3 different tracks in 4 different programs calculating, and the worst was more than 10 meter inside, and the best was 1 meter. But 1 meter is 1 meter too much, and I was spending one day. There was 24-hour penalty in Zermatt, and it was a hard lesson, but finally it's the rules. And my luck was that the flight in the day before was so good, so efficient, that I could stay in front with the rest day, and I was able to recover from all these hikes we had on the days before. I was really happy. I was really destroyed, and that was, I think it was in the first time in my life really on sitting down, and I was sure I have to stop the race because my legs was damaged. And with this rest time, or this day off, I was able to recover. I recovered good enough to continue walking on the day in Zermatt, and then I was flyable a bit. So it was unbelievable experience to realize that even at the point you not see how to continue, somehow you can continue and you can make it to the end.
Is that the one where you wrote your name in the track log?
Finally, yes, because we was in a lead in France. We was south of the Bonnet Pass, and the weather was horrible this afternoon. It was my birthday, and then we was calculating the chance to finish at the day or at the next day, and there was the forecast looks good to fly the day after, and so I decided to stop in the afternoon, and we wait there for hours. We was sleeping in the afternoon. There was raining, and then we tried the live tracking, because the live tracking, it's the best thing with the X-Alps, what they do. And finally we was trying the new precision of the new live tracking, and it was really good. So we walked on the grass and hiked this hello, and you can clearly see at the live tracking the hello. So this was my birthday, and the day after was flyable, and I could finish the race first, and it was so good experience.
We're jumping ahead a little bit here, but I need to ask: is there, of the 7 wins, does one of them stand out more? Did any of the 7 mean more than the others?
No, I think the first was really the best, because I really want to win, and I was unsure how it works. The second was more in a lead, so I was really in a comfortable situation. It was not really a race after. And the third one was even better. I had the biggest advantage ever, almost 300k. And yeah, for me, always when I won a competition, the first, it was the most important, and after I was like an extra. So it was the same in PwC, the same in Swiss Championship, and so on. And for me, it was always the challenge to win first, and then to the afterwards. I really enjoyed the competition, but the win was sometimes not as special as the first one.
And I think in 2011, that was when Toma was second.
Yeah, he was running all the rest, and he was walking for 85k in 8 hours and more than 1,000 meter uphill. And he was arriving running, and I was so impressed about him. But the next morning I was together with him in the hotel, and he was not able to walk at the table. It was hard to see this.
He's a glutton for punishment. He's back again. Okay, 2013. I also remember this one really well because I was starting to think about it at that point. And wow, the weather was amazing. You finished the race in a little over 6 days,
That was
right?
the fast one, yeah.
So tell us about that. That was I remember the first day you guys flying down the Pinzgau. You and Aaron and you. I think you made it all the way to the Zugspitze that day.
Yeah. And finally, I was really lucky because I was just crossing the mountains of Karwendel, and there was a thunderstorm coming, and I was just passing, and for Aaron, it was not able to pass, so I had a bit an advantage already in the second day, and then it was flying really good all day, quite far, and finally I flew from Solden to Grimsel Pass. That was for me unbelievable. And then I was already at home. There was a turn point at home that was really emotional because I arrived just before the at noon, and there was a lot of friends and my family, and I really was happy to arrive at home. And then it was really hard to leave because everything was perfect. I had a good lead, but I realized the conditions are good. And the next was Mont Blanc, and I was really unsure how to fly there because it was so far. No, it was Matterhorn and then Mont Blanc, and then I start and I tried to fly along the mountains, which I know well, but that it wasn't a flight was so successful. I was not expecting. In the evening, I was in the south of Mont Blanc. I was on the wrong side of the big mountain. Everybody expected I made a big mistake, and we had the plan to fly around and going north of the Mont Blanc when I was turning around. So finally, it was a really good tactic, and was a big surprise for some of the followers, and for us it was just nice to have this seen before and to try and to believe that it works. And finally, the lead was really big.
That was where you went to Chiavenna and up the backside. I mean, the south side and around. Oh, that was amazing to watch. So that was the plan.
Yeah, because
This is when you were really, really cold, right?
yeah, it was horrible. I was flying almost on 4,000. There was minus, and I remember I landed on 0 or 200 meters sea level. There was 36 degrees. So the difference between 0 or -1 on 4,000 and plus 36 on the ground, it was huge. And I flew all the way south from Mont Blanc in this height, and I was really freezing all the time. But for me, it's normal to freeze because when I push on the ground, my body is recovering, and I always having cold. I can wear all the jackets I have. It's not working. My fingers are cold, and so I know how it works. But by moving and shaking hands, normally it works well.
Now I might have my years wrong here, but in 2013 wasn't that also when you took off from the Furka and had a really scary flight to basically to your house?
Yeah, I I had a short stop at Furka, but then I flew just until Grimsel Pass. There is normally strong north wind, the Grimsel wind, and then I rest on the pass for 2 or 3 hours until the wind is degrees to fly to the north, and then the next day I flew home to Interlaken. So it was a long flight from Solden to Grimsel Pass with a small stop at Furka.
And was that the one that was really scary? Didn't you have a really scary flight that you when you landed you were pretty shaken up? You told me.
Yeah,
Was that 2013?
it was this, yes, because at the Oberalp Pass before, the wind was really strong. Thomas told me with the message it's more than 70 on the pass. I was 1,000 meters above, so there was not so windy, but I was with strong backwind. And then at Furka Pass, it was not so much wind, but I saw the wind at Grimsel that's why I landed on the Furka to breathe and to think about what I do and to be sure what I do, because I was really pushing all the day. I was cold. I had not too much to eat, to drink, and after, if you see these problems in front, it's stressful for sure, and to land and to think about it's always a good option.
As you tick off these X-Alps, you're certainly not old, but you're getting older, and you're got kids and the whole thing. Does your approach to risk, is it changing as the years go by? I found that after I had my daughter, this last one, I don't know that it affected how I flew or my approach, but it was definitely something that was on my mind. Was just that, this last one, we had a lot of firn, we had a lot of wind like we did in 2015, but also the bad weather. There was a lot of times where I felt like it was just pushing it.
Yeah.
I felt fine in the time of doing it, but after the race, I thought, geez, that was quite a bit of risk.
Yeah. I realized that I think my best years was 2012 to 14, 15. And because I was really focused on flying and pushing always in cross country, in testing, and then I start to fly less because I spend more time with the family. While flying or while competing, I really focus on flying and not thinking too much on family. But in training, I think more and more about serious training and risks in training. So to risk less in the training makes sense, but then my experience, my feelings are less in the competition. And then it's very important to not trying new things in the competition, keeping all the experience from the trainings. And this is a hard border. And I know, for example, for next year, I have to really to train a lot to push the limits, but because of becoming older and smarter, it's really hard.
Yeah. Okay, 2015. This would have been your 9, 11, 13, this is your fourth one, 2015.
Yeah, finally I switched back to Advance. Advance had the first certified competition glider, and I was really motivated with this Oxa 1, and I was together with Thomas, and we made the special move to bring an electric car as a supporter car. So to have the challenge to support by full electric car this nice race, which I had to walk or to fly. So we say the strategy is that I go by muscle power, wind power, and Thomas, the supporter, starts with electric power. And for us, it was a good challenge, but also good motivation in the preparation to learn how to manage all these tactics things, to bring not too much things, so that we had a lot of compromises with the small car. And finally, it was a good focus and motivation to see how it works, or can it work. And for sure, everybody was smiling. Also, the organization was smiling when we bring the electric car. And 4 years later, we had an electric car too from Audi, the e-tron. So it was an official car from the organizer sponsors. And I think we was really fresh in this electric power, but it was a good motivation for us and also for our partners and sponsors. And yeah, finally we start the race with a lot of unknown, with a lot of challenges also on the ground. But we was really lucky that the first day starts really good fly-wise. We flew more than 150k in the first day, and was already at the second turn point in the evening. Nobody expect, and it was a good motivation to start a race with this flight.
Yeah, that was an amazing day. That was I landed that day down on the river just this side of the Kimsey. I think I was in fourth, and I was so excited that I dropped my gloves and my earpiece, and I ran towards the river because I thought, I got to get to the top and get off with those guys. And I was so excited and a rookie that I left a trail of stuff behind me, like your phone thing with the 2009 race. I learned a lot that day about, okay, wait a minute, slow down, check your stuff. It's a long race. It doesn't all happen today.
Cool. Yeah. And finally, I was walking with Paul, and it was really nice. It was the first one. He went quite north in Germany, in the flat, and it was, for me, it was an unknown area. And at this day, at the second day on this race, I made a mistake. Was pushing too much, flying alone, and then Paul catched me, or he overpassed me. So it was a good learning, and then I was focusing on my own and keeping my own pace and moving more smart. And then it continues like this, and with the electric car it was working, and finally it was nice. Then crossing from Germany all the way to Italy, to Meran, and further on to Brenta. It was really nice. I was together with Sebastian Huber, a German. He was new he was also a rookie this time, and he was really pushing hard on the ground. I thought already it's maybe his turn, but finally flying afterwards to Monaco make the change. We was really face to face until Annecy, and on the last day I was making a little difference in the air, but that was it was a hard race with him, and I realized that new faces coming in.
Yeah, I wish we could still see him in the race. He kind of came in and did his thing, and that was it. But yeah, that he was strong that year. And then that was also the year late, as you and Sebastian were heading to Monaco. Paul made quite a nice move. It looked like it was going to be a really nice move. He kind of stayed west to the Grenoble side and had a nice flight. But in the end, you guys got him.
I not really remember the last things, but there was the night pass. The night pass was new, so, and Paul, I use it at the beginning, so I not had it anymore, and Paul bring it in, and he made a good walk in the night. He could catch up the first group, and then he was really on the good position. Then he in third, and Sebastian second. So yeah, it was a really in the end it was a really hard race. For me, it was different to 2013, when I was really in a lead, and I was really happy that I made it. And there was the year which was, I think, the most people or the most athletes in goal. There was more than, or I think 18,
maybe 18 or 19 or something. Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was the first year I think they changed the 48-hour rule. It used to be 48 hours, and so I remember that being our goal, is that I have to get in within, and we did. We got it. So in the old rules, I think our team would have been the last ones in, but then that year was when they changed it to 12 days, and so a lot more got in. That was fun.
That's true. Yeah.
That was the year I decided I didn't like Monaco very much.
Not friendly at all. With Monaco, it was emotional. It was nice to arrive at the sea, to swim, but after it was always a bit hard to have this cut from the adventure into the city, and it was it was crazy to come back into the reality.
Yeah, that was very anticlimactic. I found just being in the concrete jungle. And hot. Oh, so hot.
Really hot. Always.
There were a lot of accidents that year. I don't know if you remember, but Toma had a bad one, and Tom de Dorlado had a bad one. There was quite a few withdrawals. Did you have any really borderline situations, any scary situations with the wind?
Yeah, in 15, the problem was the windy days. So there was a lot of windy days with the föhn. I remember when I crossed from the south of Switzerland towards Engadine, there was the Corvatsch was the turn point, and there was, the forecast was clearly that it comes föhn. There was the day when Thomas landed, and he was blowing away with his glider, and he scratched his face. Vici was with the collapse, and the rescue landed in the lake. So he was blowing above the lake after the throwing the reserve, and the lake was really cold, and there was no boat to rescue him. So he was really lucky to swim by himself to save himself. And finally, I think it was just because of many windy days, but also there was rough conditions. Aaron told me he had hard collapses because it was so rough. And myself, I was stuck in the wind, in the fern, myself in Ticino when I flew from the Engadine Valley, crossing by foot to Ticino Valley. I launched with easy wind, but when I crossed to the main valley from Gotthard to Ticino, I spent 2,000 meters straight away down without any meters in front. So it was just too windy. It was more than 50 in gusts, 60, and it was not efficient anymore. I spent after all evening walking, and was lucky to have no wind at the next day to continue to valleys. I think there was always hard days, because when it's too windy it's easy, when it's raining it's easy, when it's flyable it's easy, but the days which are at the border, when it's windy, when it's foggy, when it's raining a little bit, then it's always difficult to have the good decisions. And I think 15 was one of the most difficult years because of this unsure days.
Yeah. Are you surprised there's not more accidents?
I think with the selection of the athletes, the organization bring a lot of safety in, and the athletes are really trained. They also train more hard than for other competitions. Then we bring gliders which are a bit easier than the comp wings. The most of the athletes, they fly high aspected wing, and in the adventure they fly easier wings, so it helps. And for sure we are pushing, but we also know the limits from the trainings. So if there is an accident, if there is a problem, pilots normally react even better than others. You can see this clearly in the acro scene. So when they train the tumbles and they fall into the canopy, the most of the cross-country pilots, they give up and they crash without the rescue. And the acro pilots, they fall into the canopy and they go out and through reserve. So they're really focused on this accidents, and they can solve the problems often good. And I think it's the same with the adventure athletes, that they know quite good what to do in strange situations, and that's why the accidents are not so often, or if there is an accident, it's more or less good.
Okay, 2017, number 5, another really pretty terrible year for weather. I think you and Benoit got in that year, if I'm right, and Paul was close. Let's hear about 2017.
Yeah, for me it was the first edition without Thomas. So Tobias Dimmler and Bruno Petroni was with me, so it was a new challenge to learn from each other how it works. We was the year before, and 16 we was together in the X-Pyr race. It was working already well, and I switched to Skywalk with the new glider, which was working very good for this time. I was really happy. Finally, the route was new. It was even more long, as every edition. It goes more and more long, and I understood to finish in these 12 days it could be difficult, especially the turn points really in the south, Montebaldo. We heard that it's really stable often, and it's windy and not easy to cross. And yeah, it makes it really interesting. I was a bit frustrated that it was not more in Switzerland, so we we managed Matterhorn from the south, and finally it was heading directly from Matterhorn to the goal. So there was no normal route over France, and it makes a lot of new thinkings. Finally, we was managing well. I was able to fly until Montepaldo with a nice flight, and then back to direction Switzerland, crossing Ticino. It was really nice, and then for sure the decision on the last part to fly direction France or stay in Italy direction Torino in the flat, it was really difficult. I expected always to fly to the west, following the good mountains, but exactly when I was there was a thunderstorm, and I was really not efficient on this day, and I had heading back to Ivrea, Turin, and I realized that it could be really difficult with the flat, but it was a new challenge, and I made it as always. I was taking this decision, looking forward, make the next step. I remember Benoit was walking on one day 113 kilometers. It was unbelievable. And I had to walk 75 in this flat until the next mountain, which was Comeo Pass. And yeah, it was completely like a new challenge and like a new adventure. And for me, it makes it even more motivated than maybe 2015. And finally, we was really close, and I was able to fly to the beach again. And for me, it was so nice feeling to fly from far, arriving at the evening at the beach, have a swim. It was so emotional. It was so nice, and I was really in a lead. I could see that Benoit it's close, but too close to catch me, and I was really starting relaxing and enjoying even before I was in the goal. And we was inviting directly there in a house. Someone was inviting us, and we all with the team. My mother was arriving, father, and we stayed there in the evening, spent the night in the house, and it was so nice. And then the next day was just walking a little bit. But for me, it was the year which I had the most problem with my knees, because the first day in this race we had to walk from Salzburg over the Geisberg all the way to Wagrain. And this was, for me, it was more than 80k. I remember Thomas Coconea was running more than 110k, because the first day was just from 12 to 10. So it was a short day, and he was more than 100k running. And for me, this 85 was already too much, and the knee was starting hurting, and it never recovers well. So I was all the race with pain, 10 days, painful, and this was for sure for me the hardest race ever.
Has that been any kind of a problem since, your knee? Is there any kind of recurring thing, or is that just from that overuse of the first day?
Yeah, it's because of overload of the first day, because of this 85k running and hiking. The muscle was in with a strong tension, and then it makes the tension on the knee makes it worse the days after, and then it starts to be painful. I don't know the name exactly in English. It's
tendonitis or something.
Yeah, it's a runner knee, they say.
Yeah. That was the one too. I remember watching you on live tracking, getting blown out of the mountains in that thunderstorm down south. I can't remember the name of that town south of Ivrea. Yeah. And you were going like 100 and something K an hour, and there was airspace right in front of you. We talked about this on another show, but you flying that fast in what must have been pretty scary air, you went around the airspace. Yeah. I think I would have just flown right through it.
Yeah, this was really strange, because I was hiking up, flying down this day, all the day, and then at once there was a thunderstorm coming. I was resting for 30 minutes under a rock, afterwards it clears up and it looks quite flyable. And I wanted to fly more west into the mountains to finish on the good flying mountains. And I took off in nice conditions, but from the west the next storm came, and when I flew I realized that it starts to be really windy. Then I wanted to go down to have less headwind. I spiraled down for 600 meters, and after the 600 I realized that it's even more wind down there. And then it was really good to have this plan B to rescue in the flat. I realized with the airspace it will not be easy, or for sure not efficient, because I had to fly crossing the direction line, or the direct line to the goal. And this was, in this case, it was not important anymore. I was sure to rescue and to save my life. And then I flew away with the wind. And I remember I made a screenshot on my phone with the speed of 113. And it was not turbulent, it was just windy. And I flew away for 17k in a short time. And I landed in the flat very safe, in the sun, no problem. The storm was not reaching the landing even, but I had to walk for 75k after.
Oh,
That was it was very expensive, but for me it was
expensive
the only
flight.
way. Yeah, but for me it was the only way to stay safe.
2019, yet again longer, but in a lot of ways, nice weather. We had no firn that year. I don't remember ever having to even think about a launch. They were all, you just went up and you could launch. We had the kind of tough days in the middle of the race, and then we had that crazy sandstorm that came from Africa. That, it was over 100 degrees in Chamonix when I went through Chamonix. It was so hot and so stable, which I found very challenging. But yeah, what are your best and worst memories from 2019?
Yeah, it was the year they top landed on Mont Blanc. 60 pilots top landed at 4,800 meters. And I remember Thomas Coconea, he flew up to 6,000 meters. It was so hot, and the thermals was so good. It was unbelievable. Myself, I was at this good day, I was in the goal. I was in Monaco. It was also 40 degrees. It was horrible. But I watched on the live tracking, and I was really impressed to see the heights they gave.
Yeah.
For us, the race was good because I was with the new team, Andy Schäublin and Steffi Westerhuis. Gave me good support, and we was again in Switzerland. There was the turn point in Switzerland was Titlis, 3,000 meter peak. I was really wondering how I can reach the peak. Finally, I had a good flight from Davos, from the turn point, in the good route direction Titlis, and I know the place a little bit, not that good, but I was able to top land, and for me it was like Christmas. It was so nice because the peak is so hard to climb by foot. It's so high, and I top landed in the evening. I signed. There was a storm coming, so I really could stay for more than an hour at the top, and there was some friends there, and I really spent joy, and I was really relaxed at this time because I made it. It was the middle of the race, but I felt like I got it. And
yeah, that was the winner. That was the game winner for sure that year at top landing there, because that's a big one to climb, and everybody else had to climb it. It's a long way up.
Yeah, this was unbelievable. And in the evening I flew down. Many friends was joining me in the evening and the next morning, and then I was really at home, crossing by foot all the valleys. It was a hard next day because I made 5,400 meters in vertical, just gliding down. It was I think it was the most I did in X-Alps day. But it was at my home place, and I know it well, but it was not working in Termling because I had to hike. It was a really hike and fly day.
Now you're reminding me of something that was pretty remarkable that day. You took off from Davos really low. You just signed the board, walked across, came up a little bit, and maybe you and I talked about this. I can't remember, but I thought you kind of knew, okay, if I can make Titlis, I got to do it in this amount of time. So that you worked it back, and tell me if I've got this wrong, but you worked it back and decided I can't take any more time to get higher, or was it just you just felt like you could get out of there? Because you took off really low, right? You just benched up from low.
Yeah, it was a really hard decision. The locals says it's not working. I had to go more up, but I know that if I want to do this 100 kilometers to the Titlis with the average speed of 25, it's 4-hour flying. I have to start now because otherwise it's not working. And it's a lot of things working like this in an adventure race that you have to take a bit of a risk. It's like a poker. And then I say, okay, I can try. If it's not working, I have to walk anyway. I spent 15 minutes for trying, packing. But if it works, I can do Titlis, and then I really gain a lot. And finally it works. And I think it's something which helped me a lot in the past, that I really think like this. So trying to gain a lot. And finally I was in a lead of 30 minutes compared to Maxim. And in the evening I was 1 day ahead. And it's because of this risk. And for sure it was a risk, but I also, when I walking up, I got a feeling from the thermals, from the wind. I saw clouds, I saw birds, and finally it gives me a good feeling. And with this good feeling, I tried. With a really bad feeling, or if there, for example, is no wind, I not try and say, okay, let's try now or never.
Yeah.
And it needs the experience. It needs a good feeling, and then also it needs to try, because with the good feeling and to say, normally it works like this, but I hike higher, then you not win.
Right. You got to gamble when the gambling's good.
Yeah, it needs this constellation of a good feeling, but also to try and to have the gamble.
Before we go to 21, because I know you got a hard out here in about 6 minutes, so we're trying to move through it. But before we go to 21, any real memorable mistakes in 2019, or problems or issues that still stick with you?
I think I make many small mistakes, or in the beginning I realized, okay, every day I realized that there is many small mistakes, and I can do better here, I can eat better there. But then in analyzing, I say every team do a lot of mistakes every day. So it's typical for an adventure race, because of the unknown, because of the stress, because of a team. Every team have problems and do mistakes. And then I think about what I can improve for 21. And together with Thomas, we start to say, let's try to do less mistakes. And this was a really good motivation to say, we do something which is not possible to do 0 mistakes. We not can do a race without risks. So you have to handle the risks and the mistakes. And finally, it gives us a good strategy to think about what can be a mistake at the next move, what can be mistakes in the next days, and to think about reduce the mistakes. It helps us to be more serious with us by self, and to reduce the mistakes, which makes us faster. And in general, when I watch back, I'm really proud about myself, or about the teams I had, that we not really make big mistakes. And I also think because of this, we was always fast, because the others are also fast in running, the others are fast in flying, and with these mistakes they do, maybe they got, or they lost a bit the self confidence, and without this they make even more mistakes. And for us, we always was able to be realistic and to say, okay, we made a mistake, but it's done. Focus on the next step. And with this thinkings, we was always able to be quite good in the end compared to the others.
And speaking of compared to the others, we had a tight race, much tighter than ever before, really, in 2021. The same length as 2019, but a totally different route. First year we didn't go to Monaco, and an out and back with Mont Blanc, which I know you were thrilled about, as I was. That was pretty exciting, and really tight until the big move. That's got to be a famous big move now these days. I think that was day 8. But for me, the weather in 2021 was pretty terrifying. It had all the wind of 2015, but also just there were so many times where I would land and within seconds it would just be a deluge, just incredible downpours and really strong foam, and some really violent weather for much of the race. Maybe not the first 3 days, but yeah. Tell me about 2021, because from the live tracking, it was, the top 10 were pretty tight for a while.
Yeah, it already starts at the beginning. At the first day, we was really in a windy place. So Maxim and some others, they was climbing, and I not want to go as close as them, and I was not climbing. And finally, I lost a bit of a distance, so I was in the back already after some hours. But in the evening, I managed quite well, so I was quite good in the position for the second day. On the second day, I don't know why, but I was not able to climb. Then was Benoit and Marcus. They went the direction Kitzbühel. I really had a delay compared also to Chrigel Maurer, but also Maxim Pino made a big mistake on this second day, so he had a lot disadvantage. I could up, flew in a good group, and we made Chiemsee, Marquardstein, and in the evening I had a nice flight direction west. I had a good advantage, and then in the next morning, I don't know why, but it was not climbing at my place. I spent 1 hour on the same hill trying to climb, and Patrick catched me even after an hour flying. So we was close together at Lermos, but in this evening the strong wind brings us quite far, direction Alberg, and then the weather changed, and I really was impressed how good the conditions was for flying, because the forecast was always very bad. and day 3 the weather was really, really bad in the morning, but in the evening it was quite good flying, and we could do the Swiss turn point Santis, crossing direction Fiesch, and finally that was the day which starts to be really difficult with the wind, with the rain and the clouds, and I think all the teams was on the limit in these conditions. I heard a lot of feedbacks about the days when pilots was on the limit, but yeah, for sure to walk, it's not an option, because if the others are fly and they do well, then they are much faster. So you always have to think about solutions to fly, but also to have enough safety, to have always a good plan B. And for me, I was really not in the flow on this day. I was always thinking with the forecast, okay, let's do this, and then the rain came earlier, or there was bad wind. I not understood what I do wrong, but it's sometimes like this. Sometimes it's everything works, and for me it was the race 2013 was unbelievable, because every plan we had was perfect, all the 6 days. And in 21, the first 2 days was okay, but then day 3, 4, and 5 it was not working as we expect. And to say, okay, it's like this, continue focusing, it's really important, but I not understood what I do wrong. And then when I do the big flight at day 8, everybody told me, "Wow, you did a magic move! How you can imagine this weather and how you can fly like this, and where you got the good information for this." And I was surprised, because for me it was nothing else than the days before. I just focused on the next solutions. I choose an option and I try to do my best, and it was nothing else. But on this day it was really working well. So it was for us, it was nice. And finally I analyzed a bit, and I was more confident to stay in the north because I know the area a bit better, and I expect to start earlier than in the south. I expect to have more options because I can stay in the north or I can fly to the south if there is better conditions. And I hear also that the French, Maxime and Benoit, they had forecast that it's good flyable in the south too. Because of the wind, maybe it's better in the south. And for the others, for Patrick and Simon, they continue in the south, so they not even came to Wallis, to the north. So for them, it makes more sense to stay south. And this was my luck that on this Sunday, the condition in the south was cloudy, it was stable, and it was not really flyable. And on my side in the north, there was a bit windy, but it was crosswind. It was good thermals. It was high cloud base, and with the strong thermal and the high base, I was able to fly in the end against the wind, because the wind, the south wind, it was kind of firm, but it was not typically firm. There was not above 3,000, and I flew above 3,000, and in this layer I was able to fly well against the wind. And yeah, it was a mix in between choosing a good option, but also believe on myself and this option, and then to try, and then to be a bit lucky with the weather, and that I can manage more than 200k on this day, which was, I think, one of my most difficult flight, more than 200 in life. Yeah, on this day, and it makes different in total. This was unbelievable, and we was sitting in a pizzeria in the evening, all the team together, and it was a really nice and enjoyable evening.
Does anything, was it uncomfortable for you to not be in kind of a commanding position? This was the first race where you'd had other races, like you said, where you were jockeying early, but for the most part, you've been out in front. And this was really until day 8, things were pretty tight. Was that different in terms of the fun that you had with your team, or was that challenge quite nice? Was that something you quite enjoyed?
If you just analyze the X-Alps, it was new. If you analyze my races I do since 25 years, it means PWC, it means cross-country flights. We always fly like this and stay together all the time. So for me, it was not new. It was just normal. And sure, it was after 7 days, nothing was working well, or the other did also really well. I was thinking about a hard final, and then I was really happy and relaxed after the day 8. but in the end, I think it comes closer and closer each edition. You could see this year in the X-Pyr, it was close. In the Dolomiti Superfly, it was really close. So the others, they are really good, coming stronger and stronger with the teams, so in the past it was comfortable, but in the future it will be really hard. And this is one part I stay motivated, I think.
How old are you now, Chrigel?
I'm 40.
40. Yeah. Okay. Hey, before we sign off, last question, because I know a lot of people want to know this, and maybe you've covered this in your presentations, but live tracking kind of went glitchy on us in the X-Pyr, and you and Maxime are together. The night before, Rito made this incredible move. Do I have that right? Not Rito.
Yeah, Remy.
Got quite a ways ahead of you guys, and it looked like you maybe kind of had it, and then you caught him the next day, and you and Maxime were flying together. And then what did you do? How did I heard you top landed there and gained some more height, and then you flew over his head. But tell it from your perspective, because live tracking kind of went down, and it was hard to tell what happened there, except that suddenly you were in goal and Maxime was walking.
Yeah, it was really an interesting race in the end. The day when Pierre flew passing us, we was too much into the mountains. There was too windy, or I not flew because it was too much energy and too windy. And then next morning it was really beautiful because we also was in the front of the ridge in good windy conditions, and at 8 already we were soaring up to 3,000, and it was so nice together with Maxime. And then we catch up Pierre, and together with these two we flew quite efficient because they are the best pilots also in cross country, and we was pushing really good. It was good fun. But then when it got really difficult, the lines went tricky, and we went, or Maxime, he went from us because he was in a better position. Myself, I was in the middle, and Pierre was really low. He was really lucky to not bomb out. But in the end, Maxime was in the wrong way, so he got stuck, and we was continue quite good. And then we came into the influation of the sea breeze, so there was stable air. And I arrived on the last hill or last mountain, this Cunigo, and I was stuck in the inversion. And Pierre came to me, and together we was trying, and I flew there for 1 hour and was not climbing at a good position. But above there was clouds, so I expected that it works. But I was not able to land at the west face because it was too rocky and too forest, and it was not able. So when Maxime arrived 1 hour later, he arrived maybe 100 meter higher, and it was just enough to climb. And yeah, I was a bit shocked and frustrated, and I thought, okay, this is over. But then I flew around the mountain, and I could land there in a small place, and I climbed for 500 meters by foot because I saw a place where I can launch above. So I reached the place. Yeah, it was a hard hour because I realized I'm not in a good position. I have to walk, I have to push. But then I thought, when I can fly until the beach, maybe I can pass Maxime and Pierre. And I expected less sea breeze as later I arrive, and I can fly more further. And this was my thoughts in this moment, and this helps me really to focus my own and to go step by step. And it was still more than 60k when I launched for the last flight. It was very windy conditions. It started to be cloudy, but somehow it works. Also, Pierre, he landed, but he landed more north, so he was not in a good position to come into the wind, into the good conditions. It makes him slower at this time. And yeah, it was really funny because I never checked the live tracking during flying in the races because I focus on my own. But on this time, I was really wondering what Maxime do, and because everybody watching the live tracking, they was killed, and it was not working. And I contact my supporter. They don't know at all because they was driving and they not see Maxime, and so it was flying in unknown. But then it was really nice because I was quite close to the ground in the flatland, and at once it was climbing, and I try to climb with 0.5, 0.2, 0.8 for 300 meters, and then it was finished. And I said, okay, at least 300 meters, I can save another 3 kilometers. And then after 2 kilometers, there was that thermal of 2 meters, and it was climbing so nice in the evening. and it was so smooth, and it already the first turn felt really good, and then I was sure I made it. I can make it.
Wow.
And
Special.
then there was a really good one. They brought me up 1,000 meter in the flat, and the glide ratio to the goal came down to 13, and I almost made it to the goal or to the finish, and it was really a nice experience because of the pressure, because of the tactic move I made on the end, and because I not see on the live tracking what Maxim do, so I was really unsure where I stay. And when I landed, I was still 3K before the goal, and I expected that Pierre can maybe flyways, so he can catch me, and I was really watching to the sky to try to see him. I packed my glider, I start walking fast, and I say, okay, let's finish quickly. And when I realized that I in front, that I can win, it was so a good feeling.
It was a cool route this year.
Yeah.
Okay, I lied. One final question. Do you have right now, in preparing for the X-Alps, are any of the other competitors part of your strategy? And what I mean is, are you marking anyone in particular in terms of how to prepare to beat them? Whether that be Benoit or Maxime, those that you feel are the biggest threats. Do you change anything because of them? I know in a World Cup, you might have certain pilots that you definitely want to keep an eye on in terms of where they are and what they're doing. But is that the same in adventure racing, or are you just focused on you?
Yeah, what I can see clearly, it's that they really have good skills in hiking for sure, in flying as well, in the team. But I realized that following the leader, it's very much easier than stay in the lead, because leading means you have to think about options, you have to have the decision for a good option, and then you have to try and to always to think about it will work. And this needs a lot of energy and power. And as soon I go in the back, I can just follow the leaders because the line is the best. And these are two games, I think. And we analyzed the races when I was in the back, and I start to think differently, and I realized that leading is much more work than following. But for sure they can with a good follow they can come close to the end, and with a bit of luck they can win for sure, because leading is one part and controlling is the other part. And for me, in a World Cup, for example, it's the best to control close to the goal, and then to push or to make a tactic risk to win the day. And as closer we come in the adventure race, as more and more it goes to this tactic to control until the end, and then to risk more to win.
Chrigel, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. It's great to have you back on the show, and it was wonderful to relive so many of those special moments. Good luck in your preparation. Say hi to Thomas. I hope you put together a great team, and I know we will all be super excited to watch you this June. But thanks, Chrigel. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon at the next race.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription. and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.